This is Knox Street Studios Tech Bridge, where we together work on our productivity and technical know-how. Let's get started. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go on GitHub and look at a couple of different projects. And so far, what we've been doing, we've been building from the ground up. We have been working on numbers, strings, lists, things of that nature. But another way that, so as we are starting to build up and we have to do more of that, we also need to look at it from kind of project base. And so GitHub is one of the places where we can go and get projects and look at them, kind of tinker around with them. And so we're going to look at a couple of different projects, but in order to do that, we're going to set them up in a virtual environment. Let's get started. All right, so I see this one right here, Hitchhiker's Guide to Virtual Environment. All right, so it's giving us a couple of recommendations. Make sure you have Python, checking the Python version, right? We can do that, Python version. All right, so I tell you what. So before we do it, we'll go through and look at the 2 or 3 steps in order to set up the virtual, and then I'll flip over to the screen and run that. So the first thing they do is they check for Python version. Make sure you have Python. Then they check for pip version. I know I have those 2 installed already. And then what you want to do is you want to install pip install virtual environment. And then you want to check the version, okay? So let's pop over to the screen. Let's pop over to the terminal, and try the Python version, the pip version, and then I've already installed the virtual version, but we'll do a short example of what that looks like. All right, let's do that. Okay, so we are at the terminal, and let's try Python version. Okay, so that shows me I got Python 2.7.15. If you remember, the virtual environment needed 3, but I also have Python 3 version. And now it's showing me that I do indeed have Python 3.7.8. Okay, so I meet the first requirement. The second requirement is pip install. To make sure that I have pip installed. Pip. And let's try the same syntax. Dang, that didn't work. All right, so let's try with. Okay, so the instructions say to use pip, but I needed to use pip3. And when I typed in pip3 version, it shows me that I have pip 20.1.1. All right, now the third and the last thing is the pip install virtual. And let me see if I can remember that. That's pip3 install virtual environment. All right, so when I type that in, that's good, right? Now the deal is, it said 2 things. It said requirements already satisfied. That means I already got it. It also told me that a newer version of pip is out. I'm going to ignore that for right now. So now I want to check the version of the virtual environment. env, two dashes, version. So from the terminal, when I type in virtual env space two dashes version, I have the virtual environment 16.0.0. Okay, so now the thing that you want to do before you start installing, and I'll just show you, is you want to activate the version. So right now you see my name, you see documents that tells you what folder I'm in, and then you see the $sign. You know you're running the virtual environment when you see the VENV, right? And so in order to run the virtual environment, to then start to stick all the projects in, you need to do source bin activate. I don't remember what that, so let me look up that terminology. In order to do that, what you need to type in is source then / bin activate. Now when you do that and hit enter, what you're going to see is before all that other stuff, you see VENV. What that means is you are now in a virtual environment, and so now you can install all of the things. I would recommend in a separate folder and keep that separate from all the other projects that you're interested in doing. All right, that's step number one, installing the virtual environment. Step number two for today is we're going to look at 2 or 3 projects, and then we're going to bring one into our now set up virtual environment. Let's run over to the web browser and look at a couple of different projects. My little GitHub, but that's fine. Let's click on Marketplace. And so at GitHub, what you can do is you can find other people's code. And so specifically, I'm looking at Python projects. You can look at other projects. You can look at Ruby, JavaScript, you name it. All the multiple different languages will have their own space for the type of projects that you're interested in. There's some mobile projects out there, et cetera, right? And so let's try. Let's type in NBA. We're watching a little NBA. Ooh, that's because I'm in mobile. Let's go up here to the higher bar, type in NBA. And what you should see is, it's right. You see there's almost 15,000 repositories. So they call these repositories, right? So let's click on the first one. And so this one tells you it's a Python client for NBA statistics located at stats.nba.com. So when you click on it, so when you're on GitHub, so the first thing you want to do is you want to read the README, right? And you can do it by right here, or you can usually just scroll down and look at it. And it gives you what the requirements are. And again, the reason why we set up the virtual environment is because you don't want, so let's say you're working on 3 different projects. You don't want the requirements of one to interfere with the requirements of another, right? Also note, you see all the different contributors there. You can talk to them. You can follow them. You can send them an email. It's a good way to get connected with the community that you're interested in, right? All right, so let's move on. Let's say that I am interested in facial recognition. Found a game, so there are games. So here's the README for this. This PyZell is a retro game engine for Python. It looks like you can build different types of things, but here are the specifications, right? It runs on Windows, Mac, Linux. codes written with Python 3. You got a color palette. You got a couple of image banks, et cetera, et cetera. It tells you how to install. Yeah. And then after installing, you see the snake game, the mouse game. You got the sound API, drawing API. So there's quite a few things that are built on top of this piece right here. Okay. And then finally, I am going to show you a kind of quantitative. Last project, I'll download this one because this is the smallest one of the ones that we've looked at. And this one that I found is your, so if you want to back test stock ideas. So if you want to figure out that the strategy that you have with your stock picking is working, some people back test. And so supposedly, and I haven't played around with this in any type of detail, but it's supposed to help you with that process. So this was created 2 years ago. It was last updated in 2019. All right, so let's show. So let's go to, this is the master. All right, so if you scroll down, you look here, you see the code. You can download the code. And so you can download the zip. All right, we're going to save it to the desktop. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to first go to where that is. We're going to put it in My Documents. So I did move the quantitative master to the document folder. I was able to get into the folder. Notice that it's in the virtual environment. On this particular one, there wasn't a whole lot of requirements. But as you saw in some of the other ones, you may have to install NumPy. There's a couple of other things that you may have to install in order to run that particular project that you're looking at. That's why you set up the virtual environment one more time. For this one, there are some global options that I need to look at, some commands that add to the setup when you run it. I need to play around with that. But in recap, we looked at multiple projects. There's a lot out there for you to tinker with and to start to see other people's code and to start to read it. And the best way to do it is just to get your hands dirty and start to go through some of the repositories and look at it. When you find something that you're interested in, to save yourself some pain, set it up in virtual environment. And the last thing I'll ask you to do is that if you set something up or you find something that's interesting, shoot me an email or a text. I want to thank my new subscribers for subscribing. Please, if you find the content interesting, share it with some other folks. I think that's cool. I even get a shout out. My youngest daughter mentioned to me that somebody that she knows found it, which is pretty daggone cool. All right, so please continue to share with others and give me feedback about what the other pieces, other projects you're interested in seeing break down. That's it for today. Have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon.